Hey guys, welcome back to another Banished Where Games video. Today we're going to do something kind of fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare various types of food sources. So a lot of times people have questions, what's the best type of food source, what's the easiest to use, what's going to get me the most food. So we're going to compare some of those things today. Now I should say right off the top, but this is by no means any kind of scientific comparison. It's pretty much just an experiment really. So what I've done is this was kind of fun. It actually took me a little while because I had to get the town, I had to get enough people in my town and give them enough firewood, etc., 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 so that we could put in some fields. So our first type of food source is going to be crops. Now we're going to do a double experiment here. We've got two fields that are 8 by 15 in length. And then we've got one that is 15 by 15. So this is just going to give us a comparison of how well does one single giant field do against two smaller fields. Now just for the sake of argument and comparison here, our biggest field has 4 people working in it, and the smaller fields have 3 people working each. Not necessarily that you're going to get more crops if you've got more people working. It just means maybe they're going to make sure that they get all of the crop in before the winter hits. So just for the purposes of our experiment, we wanted to have the maximum amount that the game asked for without bumping it up or down. Okay, so the second type of food source we have is the hunting cabin. So we made a little sort of satellite village here where we've got a forester, we've got a gatherer, we've got the hunting cabin. I put a storage barn close by because I wanted those guys to have the opportunity, same as our farmers over here, of having a storage barn close by to make sure that they could get as much food in as possible. And then there's the herbalist there as well, just to make sure nobody gets sick and dies while we're doing this. So yeah, if we have more than a couple of people, laborers die without adding any of this, that could affect the results here. Hopefully it doesn't. And then I added a fishing dock way over here. Put a couple houses closer by just so that if these guys needed to have somewhere closer to live, they could. It doesn't look like these guys are fishermen right now, but so be it. And then I put a storage barn close by as well so that they have a chance to make sure that everything is close by. So we've got, as you can see here on this side, we've got our 3 crop fields, which are sort of acting as crops. We've got our hunting cabin, we've got our fishing dock, and we've got a gatherer's hut. And as you can see, they've been collecting for a season or 2 here. I wanted to make sure that everything was good and ready to go for the experiment. So we're at early spring right now, and as you can see, the current season has just flipped. So the season has started in early spring, and right now the fishermen are ahead. They have 3. Before I could hit the pause button, they had 3 units in. So a couple things to note before we really get going is that your farmers, of course, are only going to work. They're going to plant in the spring, and they're going to harvest in the summer and in the autumn, depending on the crop. So late summer and into the autumn to pull their crop. And then the rest of the year they bring nothing in. So while they bring a lot of stuff in all at once, it might not necessarily be more than the other guys are bringing in because they're working all through the year. The deer hunters in the hunting cabin here, they're going to be working all year round. The gatherers will also be working all year round, and the fishermen will be working all year round. Again, just to quickly go over this before we get started, our crops, we are growing potato and pumpkin. Those are the 2 seeds that I was given at the beginning of this match. So potato and pumpkin, so these guys are in the vegetable category. So they're only bringing one source of food, one type of food, and that is your vegetables. So of course, for your people to remain healthy, they need a different variety of food. So they need some protein, they need some vegetables, they need some fruit, etc., etc. So they're only bringing one. Of course, the fishing dock is only going to bring in protein for us, as is the hunting lodge. So they're each bringing in meat or protein. The gatherer's hut, interestingly, has onions, roots, mushrooms, and berries. So berries is going to give us some fruit. The onions and roots, I believe, are counting as vegetables. And I heard somewhere that the mushrooms might actually count as protein. Don't quote me on that. I'll see if I can look that up after I'm done the video and maybe leave that in the comments. As to whether that's true or not, or maybe one of you will do that for me. Who knows? Anyways, we wasted enough time, so let's get going here. Let's check out and see how things are going. We're set at 10 times speed right now. Maybe I'm going to slow that down just a little bit to get going. And off we go. You can see we've got all of our positions are maxed out right now for the food gathering. We've got 3 extra laborers, so hopefully there shouldn't be any issues. with that. And so, of course, our crops are being planted. They're not going to be bringing anything for us for a while. Our gatherer's hut, the guys are going to be gathering throughout the season. And our hunters are going to be hunting. And, of course, the fishermen are going to be fishing. So the fishermen are going to get off to a pretty decent start because they're bringing in stuff constantly. And you can see here the gatherer's hut. Hopefully this is big enough that you can actually see it. But the gatherers are actually off to a smashing lead right now. They have about 100 and let's call it 120-ish already in units of food. The fishing dock has brought in 30. Hunting cabin hasn't brought in any yet, and the crops, of course, haven't brought in any yet. The hunting cabin, when they get a deer, I believe it's 200 units of venison they bring in at a time. We'll find out. We'll see as soon as it pops up here, if I'm wrong. So yeah, kind of fun. This is just a little experiment. Again, like I said, there could be different conditions in different, you know, if your fishing dock is set in a place where it's got way more water around it, it's going to do a lot better than this one, for instance. This one's only using the water from there to there. So I might have set it here. I mean, it's going to make a bit of a difference. It's not going to make a huge difference. If I were to set it, say, here, where it had most of that water, it would do much better. So again, this is not entirely scientific. It's just to see, just a lark, just a what if you will. So things are going good. We got our fields being planted here. All 3 fields being planted. Our gatherers are going. Our gatherers, let's see, let's check in, see where we're at. 100 and let's call that 100. Okay, so 250 and another 150. So that's 400 units already. So the gatherer's hut way out in the lead so far. The fish, we've got 70 fish so far, and we've got nothing from the hunting cabin and nothing from the crops. So you can see already, if your goal is to get a lot of food in a hurry, or get some food in a hurry, the gatherer's hut is going to be your choice. I would recommend that the first food gathering type you use is a gatherer's hut. It's going to save your people from starving that first winter. Even if you wanted to grow some fields or put some fields in to grow some crops, you're not going to have time to do it in that first winter. So you got to get the gathering hut in. Okay, so it looks like our guys have caught some deer. So we've got 160 units of venison and 4 leather out of the deal. So that's one benefit that the hunting cabin has, is it can also bring in leather. We could build a tailor, and we could start clothing our people with the hide coats. So that's kind of one advantage that has. So right now, let's tally things up. We're in early summer now, so we've basically had 1 season. So 1 season in, and it still says current season. I'm guessing this is going to flip at summer, so maybe 2 seasons per year. We'll see. Some of you out there are laughing because you know already. So right now, we're in early summer. We've got 124 fish. So last place is the crops, nothing. Second place is the fish, 127. Third place, the hunting cabin with 160. And way out in front is the gatherer's hut. They are at, let's call that 400, 550, 680. So about 700 units of food. So the gatherer's hut way out in front right now. Really, if you were to put, say, 3 of those in instead of fishing dock and a hunting cabin, you'd probably be way ahead of using those 3. However, that's not the point. We're not declaring a victor just yet, because these guys have a lot of food getting ready to come in here. I'm not sure that they're going to surpass the gatherers, but they might. So the other thing to keep in mind is that the gatherers is using 4 people right now. The hunting is only using 3. The fishing is using 4. And our farmers, like I said, we put 3, 3, and 4. So there's 10 altogether. So that's another consideration to make, is even if the fields win, or if they come and bring in the most food, they're using twice as many people and a half again as, say, a gatherer's hut. So that's a consideration too. You might, in the early phases, you might need more people. And so maybe you don't want to waste a bunch of people out in the fields. All right. So are we having fun? The race is on. Now, some crops, of course, will get harvested earlier than others. So we have potatoes and we have pumpkins. The pumpkins, I believe, are a bit later in the season, and the potatoes come up a bit earlier. There's also different crops will last in the ground a bit longer at lower temperatures than others. So you'll see some start disappearing earlier, like wheat, for instance, seems to last a little longer into the winter. So, let's see how we're doing. Oh, look at this. This is exciting. The hunting cabin has jumped into second place. Looks like they caught another one, so they're up to 320 and 8 units of leather. And our fishing dock is still at, well, let's call it about 250, 248, 251. So they're constantly bringing in fish. But they have dropped into third place, and our gatherers at, oh, and everything's happening at once. It's very exciting. Our crop fields have started pulling in some product here. So it's late summer, and it looks like our potatoes and our squash, or and our pumpkins, sorry, everything's getting harvested at the same time. I was incorrect. Those are all at the same time. So they're going to start coming in right now. Hopefully we don't get smashed, and this is going to flip the numbers on us. If it does, then that's okay, because we'll compare the second half of the year. But that may be what's happened, and it looks like it did not. So we're in early autumn now. So early fall, and the crop fields are starting to come in with some big numbers. It's like an election night. We're just waiting to see who wins. We've got some early returns, and we've got some districts that are waiting to be counted later in the day. I'm just joking around, of course. Okay, so this is good. This is exciting. I'm excited. I hope you're excited too. Our hunting cabin looks like it has dropped into third place. So I would say right now, without having done a lot of counting, I would say the fishermen are in last place right now. Hunting cabin is in third place. The crops right now, let's see, we've got about 1,800 units there. And 369. So I would say right now the fields have moved into first place. Our crop fields started late, but they've moved into first place. Now the question is whether these guys are going to be able to finish pulling all this stuff in before that temperature drops too low, whether they're actually getting the full amount that they're bringing in or not. That's an exciting question, isn't it? I'm excited. I'm waiting to see. And I hope that you are also equally excited. So let's see. How's our storage barn doing? Good. Lots of room left. Of course, we've got 3 of them set up, so I wouldn't expect them all to be overly filled. This one's getting pretty full because, of course, this is where both the barn and the gatherer's hut are putting food in there at the same time. This one over here is all of our fish, and it's getting used almost as fast as it's being brought in. There's 4 units of fish in that storage barn and 31, so they actually brought some of the fish all the way over there. Again, like I said, if it was doing a good comparison, we'd try to find some way to make everything equal, to have enough houses around here so that the fishermen are all working closer. We may have issues with people walking back and forth to their jobs and not being as inefficient, but again, we're just trying to have a good look and see how things scope out for us here. So we are in late autumn, and we're still in what they're calling the current season. So I'm kind of wondering, why don't they just call it the current year, because really, other than the fact that it started in the spring, it's a year-to-year comparison. Now it's winter. A lot of farmers standing around here, you can see, because they got nothing to do. So now they jumped out ahead. The farmers were up at, looks like their final numbers for the year. We can probably call those final numbers. That's 1,200, and so 2,400 units of food. But keep in mind that that is all that they're going to bring in for the year. So we will see if they do end up bringing in more. One thing we can quickly check out too is how our big field did compared to our 2 smaller fields. And it looks like we had 1224 in the big field. And, you know, it's not a direct comparison because 2 different crops, but whatever. So we've got, it looks like 1272. So the 2 smaller fields brought in more than the big field. However, 3 people, so 6 people working. This one we only had 4 people working. So there might be a case to be made for the one bigger field being more efficient than the 2 smaller fields. I bet you that might not be correct in cases where you're racing to get all of the crop in with the patterns and that. I know some people out there, especially on the Reddit forum, people have gone through and done spreadsheets and told you exactly how much you can get and what the best and most efficient way to do it is. So you can check that stuff out if you're super interested in that kind of level of statistics. So we're in early winter here. Our year is almost up. Getting very exciting. So let's see where we are. Like we said, there's about 2,400 units. I think those guys are still in first place. Second place are our gatherers, and our gatherers are now at, let's see, this is 400, 800, 1,200, and 1,200, and so about 1,700, 1,800, somewhere in there. So they're catching up. I don't know if they're going to have enough time to jump into the lead or not. Again, we've got a lot of stuff around them too that may be having some effect, and our forester is not working as quickly as he could. If this was a fully forested area, they may be bringing in more food. Again, not scientific. What we're learning is that while the fish are being regularly brought in, there just aren't a whole lot of them. So fishing docks are a good source of food, but they're certainly not the most efficient. And if you need a bunch of food, and in this game you always need a bunch of food, maybe the fishermen are not your best friends for starting. I like to use them because they can the fish can be traded fairly easily. So if you've already got a gatherer's hut, you can just pull in some fish and use the fish to trade. Again, you could also make a case for putting in a forester and a couple of woodcutters and using firewood. So anyways, now we're just babbling. So we're in the late winter. We'll know that we're done when these numbers flip over to the next column, and then I'll pause things up and we'll do our final tally. But so far, the returns are not looking good for the fish. The fish will be defeated. They will not be continuing on in their area. I'm just kidding. Sorry. We're doing like political stuff again. So yes, the returns continue to come in. So we're in late winter. So I think we're going to see that flip happen fairly quickly. Just comparing to last year's number, it looks like the fishing dock's done better than last year. The gathering hut seems to be pretty close, if not better. The hunting cabin did much better than last year, and the crops were pretty close to what they brought in last year. So that's kind of exciting. This one interestingly brought some pumpkin and some potato. I must have switched that one, and they may have started planting some of it before I switched it. I don't know. That will be another interesting experiment to flip the source while they're still planting and see if it plants two different types of crops in the same year. Oh, and there we go. Okay, pause. Everyone stop. We are finished. We are back to early spring. It's been an entire year for our people. So let's have a look. Let's do some counting here. So we know for a fact that our fishing dock did the poorest with only 500 units. Again, I think a lot of the reason for that, like I said, is if you can see that circle. So the circle around the fishing dock shows you the area that they can fish in. Of course, they can only fish in the water. So if they had had an area where there was more water for them to fish in, they probably would have done a lot better. I know you can get a lot more than 500 units in a single year. The hunting cabin came in second. They brought in 840 units of venison. They also brought in some leather. So again, we're weighing the fact that they're not bringing in a ton of food with the fact that they're bringing in stuff that we can use for coats early on. So not the worst thing to use. And this is a question. So we know that we had about 2,400 units, give or take, of our, let's see, what is it? That's actually 25. Yeah, let's call it 2,500 units from our fields using 10 people. And our gatherer's hut, which only used 4 people, has brought in, let's see here, so that's about 1,050. So 1,670. So that's 2,000. Let's call it 2,100 units just to round things off. So we got about 2,100 units of food. So the winner was the 3 fields. Again, though, we had a lot more people, right? So if we just compared straight up this 4, right? So if we're saying most of these places had 3 or 4 units, so a single large field brought in 1,200 units, a single gathering hut with the same amount of people as that field brought in far more than that one crop did. So really that's probably the fair comparison to say that one field versus the gatherer's hut instead of all 3. Also, if you used all 3, yes, you're getting 2,500 units, but you're using 10 people to get it, so it's about 250 units per person. And we said down here there was, what, 1,000, 2,000, so 2,100 units with 4 people bringing in. And so they're bringing in 500 units each. Our fishing dock brought in 500 units, and it took 4 people, so one of the gatherers brought in as much as the entire fishing dock. Almost the same amount as the hunting. And again, the other benefit you have from that is that you're bringing in 2 different types of food. So what's the best kind of food? Well, it all depends on what your goal is, what your aim is. If you had wheat, for instance, you'd be able to use that for ale. You also can use the berries for ale. So if you're trying to do that, you may want to have either a gatherer's hut or the farmer's fields. I would say that your best bet right off the hop to try to get some food in and get it in quick is to get a gatherer's hut going. Maybe get 2 of them going just off in the periphery and start bringing that food in for your people. And then you can do things like worry about bringing in some crops and setting up your hunters and setting up your fishermen. Your fishermen can probably wait for a little further into the game if you use them at all. So that was kind of a fun experiment. We'll probably do some more of these kind of things as I think them up. Again, not scientific. We talked about that. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry it went on a little longer than we thought it was going to, but if you enjoy our videos, we sure love to hear from you. Any kind of comments you can make, or likes, or subscribing to us, all of that's lovely, and we really do appreciate the comments, because it really helps us get better and to help give you better information. So once again, I hope you had a great time. This has been a Where Games video, and we will see you next time. Bye.